Hey, how we doing? This is JT from hoagiesgarage.com. It's been a while since the Impala here was posted on GMEFI, so I wanted to give the GMEFI people that, kind of patronize that site, check it out, a little bit of an update here since my last one. If you've been following along, most of my stuff's been on YouTube. I don't know if we have many subscribers out there, but on the Hoagie's Garage YouTube channel, that's where literally everything, 95% of the steps have been posted there. But I'm going to kind of give a quick recap on some highlights as to what's happened here on the LT1 and the Impala, and maybe just a small little couple tidbit exclusives here for you guys. So, and if you're a normal subscriber, this is going to be on the channel as well, so you'll get those exclusives too. So here we go. So as I've said many updates ago, the Impala here was acquired by myself from my dad. The point being, if you see in my garage here, you see kids stuff, everything like that. I have a kid, so I needed something with 4 doors that wasn't boring. There was no way I was going to get the Kia at the dealership and driving it. So this is why the Impala project is happening. So with that being said, the plan was to put an LT1 383 in there. It was built by Golan, and go from there. I got the short block from them, put the heads on. I've got an Edelbrock intake, a 58mm throttle body, the always skeptical, worrisome MSD Opti Spark, K&N intake, and who made Tri-Y clear image long tube unequal length headers with some high flow cats going to a Borla exhaust out back. Now with all that on there, there's been some little tweaks here and there. Electric water pump with wiring from Innovative Wiring. Obviously you can see back here all the silicone hoses, got some new old stock ones on there along with some Goodyears. Had to trim the valve covers to clear those the head setup on there, and some over the valve cover wiring here, which I'll kind of give you a close up here. If you notice though, I have a towel there. The intake isn't on yet, and that's going to be happening today. So basically got to prime the oil pump, put the oil pump drive in, and then start doing the intake assembly with the fuel injectors, wiring, fuel rail, fuel pressure regulator, and then working back to the throttle body and the intake. So I'm going to kind of plug all this in here and show you, just sort of as the process goes here. So yeah, it's coming along. I can't say that it was an easy project here, but it's been okay. All the things that came up were kind of to be expected. If you've ever done any work on these LT1s though, everything is on the passenger side. That means AC compressor, alternator, power steering, that's all in there. And that was all installed before the engine was put in. But man, what a job that passenger side is. There's so many wires and hoses and connections over there. It's absolutely insane. One of the big issues I had was clearing headers. That, I had AC lines running within a 1/4 inch of them, had to wrap those, had to hide them. Just different stuff like that. It's been those little things have been just taking the most time. One of the things people always ask me is, why are you doing it on this car? Why are you dealing with a 1996 that has 180,000 miles on it? It's very simple. And I don't know if this really came out in my first few postings on the site, and I've said this so many times in the videos. This car was my dad's. He's still around. He's been helping me with it. I was in this car at the dealership when we bought it back in 1996, and we took it on family vacations, did all that sort of stuff with it. But the main reason this car is in such nice shape is because my dad was the sole driver, the sole passenger for 150 of those 180,000 miles. The seats are like mint, the interior is flawless, the paint is nice. I mean, if I told you this had 180,000 miles on it and you were looking at it in person, you probably wouldn't believe me. So I don't really have to do a lot of that stuff that you would do on a car that was just beat to snot and worn out. So it's a really nice starting point for this project. So we've come to the point, like I was just saying, where it's time to do the intake, and that means priming the oil pump. I already primed it once, which everybody says that's good enough. I kind of am sort of an overkill, like I don't want to worry or leave anything to chance, so I'm going to prime it one more time. The way this engine's set up and in that position, have to use this snazzy right angle drill to prime it, and once I do that, I can install the oil pump drive. Apparently, and I didn't confirm this, but the old school, like plain old shaft style oil primer tools don't work on this engine. It has to have this collar thing, and this thing didn't really do much of anything other than just kind of like support it against the back wall, but this seemed to do the trick. So kind of a interesting thing. If you are priming one of these, you need one with the big piece on there. When I've never primed a small block V8 Chevy before. I've done Jeep engines and things like that, but it was so long ago. When people said like prime the engine, I was expecting like this big crazy like oil explosion shooting everywhere. Kind of not so dramatic. It's mostly all up in the cylinders under the valve covers. So what's crazy is this is like one of those moments where it's just like take a minute, breathe for a second. This is one of the first parts I bought when I decided to do this project, because I knew when my dad was ordering parts for this to do this project, I knew he didn't have this yet, the infamous oil pump drive, and it is a new GM part. From what I could tell, these are kind of tough to get, but they're out there. I sold the used one that had 180,000, so I figured it was time for a new one, but this is it. So here we go. Let's put this guy in.
With just a little wiggling, that is in. Time to bolt it down. This is kind of that last glance of the, hopefully I'll ever see the inside of this engine. One thing I am going to do though is clean the cylinder heads off a little bit there. Not that they're much wrong with them, but I kind of want to get it all clean before I put the gaskets, and then we'll talk about sealing these China walls up there after I get this cleaned up. But that's it. Kind of weird to see this. I think it's going away finally, and not going to be looking in there anymore.
So it's all cleaned up now. The gaskets are in there. They got little push pins. I'll show you. You'll see that here in a second. As far as what people like to call the China walls, or the block surface that matches the intake, well known for leaking oil, seeping, anything like that. A lot of different ways people tell you how to seal it, whether you follow the online methods. I've been using this book a lot for this build, just for reference. They tell you one way. I have an article from I forget what magazine, torn out, in the early 2000s, how to do it. My basic plan is, what I'm going to do is, people say it doesn't work, but I did it. I put the little dimples in the block, just real small, with a little like set, punch. Big thing everybody says, make sure it's clean. So I'm probably going to wash my hands about 2 more times before I do this. And then they say use the gray sealant to put a bead along there, and then go up a little bit to touch the gaskets just to tick. So that's the plan I'm going to do. And then when you install the intake, it says do not like bump the sealant, if that makes sense. And then the final thing is, the magazine said let the stuff skim over. So you put it on there, let it set just for a little bit, and it has to be, it's warm enough out now. If you were doing this in the cold, you'd have to take some precautions to let the stuff sort of like heat up, if that makes sense, like set. So I'm going to finalize, going to clean the intake here. Actually, you know what? I'm going to show you this. I got a mess over here, so don't judge. This is our Edelbrock intake. It looks like a mess here because it's sitting here. I actually had to take all these brackets off I had on there because I feel like it's going to get in the way of the bolts, which go like right there. This is the LT1 Edelbrock intake manifold, brand new. It just looks dirty because I got the tape on it still. Block off plates on the EGR. I've got almost every one of my vacuum ports ready to go. Map sensor. It's all set. These I have to torque down still, but we're pretty much ready. So yeah, gonna get this going here.
So we're letting that set up. It says until it's skimmed over. You know, if you're the pro at this and you've got some better way or something, you can leave a comment for sure. But, you know, don't judge. If it leaks and, you know, it's a big problem, I'm sure I'll tell you and you can say I told you so. But that's my best way I could figure out how to do it. So we'll see if it works. Hopefully it does. So after a little bit of a hairy moment, this front bolt didn't seem to go in right. I felt like I cross-threaded it, and it's always freaky with these aluminum heads because you don't want to screw something up on that, but it's on there. This Edelbrock called for 2 tightening sequences totaling 25 foot-pounds. So I kind of went around and snugged them just a tick, and then went around in the order that they gave, and the next round was 25 foot-pounds. So assuming that's right, should be good to go. Next up is just kind of sort the fuel injectors and start hooking stuff up. We're getting there though. So I'm slightly jumping out of order here, but I really just wanted to kind of, we'll say, seal the engine up so nothing can get in there whatsoever. Got this throttle body from TPIS, one of the better companies from my assessments on 58 millimeters. And probably one of my favorite parts of this was asking, you know, who makes a good 58 millimeter, and the entire internet just seeming to go against you and say you don't need it, blah blah blah. But at least in my estimation, this engine needs it. The intake allows for it. So that is a 58 millimeter throttle body from TPIS. I had to get some kind of custom bolts. That is the one thing, you spend $400 on a throttle body. My one knock on them is they don't give you new bolts, and the factory bolts don't really fit their little flanged, recessed hole there. So we've got some Allen head ones, you know, just regular old stainless ones in there. So that's on. Put on the little hose that goes under there to the intake, and the rest of the brackets that hold the throttle linkage, and then this one here, just this guy, that just holds the wiring harness in place. So moving along. Alright, this is the next major portion of the top end install. Stock fuel injector. I don't even know what the flow rate is. The Excel fuel injector, these are 36 pounders. You can see full metal, a little bit nicer looking unit. Very simply, we need this little clip, and they pull right off pretty simply, just like so. And I'm just reinstalling them the exact same way onto the new injector. These caps come off, and then this slides on there. Pretty much there's like these ridges on the top one. It just pops right on there. That, and then from there it slides into these holes. I kind of researched this a little bit. A lot of people say take a little bit of motor oil and just put it on that O-ring. These were brand new O-rings that came on the injector, and you know, some guy said, well, it's going to ruin the O-ring, but then somebody else said, well, if you don't lube it, it could rip it, do something like that. These clips though are what hold it to the fuel rail. So you just take it. Actually, I'll do this one here so you can kind of see. It just pretty much pushes on there. And that's it. Then from there, after I get these next 3 done, lube all these O-rings, and then it should just go right in. And that's pretty much it. You bolt it down. So next big step, almost done here. The fuel rail is installed, bolted down. This Impala has the home plate, which is that big plastic baffle, removed. You can see back there the aeromotive fuel pressure regulator. So basically, a couple little odds and ends, you know, and then it's going to be ready to fire up here. Just a quick list: set that initial fuel pressure, connect all the wires, obviously. A couple little connectors, like I still need to do the coolant crossover tube to the back of the heads. And that's pretty much it. Throttle linkage, if you want to call it linkage, that has to be hooked up. But you know, little quick jobs. But basically, next video is going to be the startup, which actually I plan to do tomorrow. But it's just a question of editing all this together and everything. So fingers crossed. And you know, if you're tuning in, be ready for that next one. So like I was saying earlier, you know, if you're a GM EFI person and you haven't been following along or it's something you're interested in, go ahead and subscribe to Hoagie's Garage, and you'll kind of see the final video here. But if you want to get caught up, a lot of updates on there, individual videos to the motor mounts, to head install, to electric water pump stuff. Lots of stuff out there, so you know, check it out and you can get caught up on the build here. But fingers crossed this starts this weekend here, and we can get out and drive this thing a little bit before the winter. So thanks for watching, appreciate your time, and hopefully you know, next video won't be me just having a mental breakdown because this thing doesn't start. So thanks, I'll see you.